everyone. Welcome to Podtoid. We are your host. I am CJ.
I'm Chris.
I'm Dan.
I'm Charlotte.
I'm Occams.
And this is episode 389, guys. It is great to be back. How are you doing?
Doing well.
I'm okay. I can somewhat walk again, so that's a bonus.
Charlotte, you had a good week?
Yeah. Running on a bit of a sleep deficit right now, but yeah, I've had a pretty good week.
That's me every day. Last night I went and saw the movie Cold War, but I went to the latest possible showing, so I didn't get back into my apartment until 1 o'clock. It's a really good movie.
Good tip.
Yeah, if you get a chance to see it, it's an Amazon Studios. It's a foreign film. It's all subtitled. It's black and white. It's shot in 4:3, but it's really good.
Is that on your movie pass?
Yes, that's one of the last 6 movies I'm going to be using my movie pass for. So I was going to go use it to see The Prodigy and then just sneak into the Lego Movie too, but decided not to. Also, apparently not many people saw the Lego Movie too. That's the movie's off to a bad start apparently.
I'm surprised at that.
With your movie pass, are they still like limiting? Is it like at this point? Is it just you can go and see this one movie or
so pretty
this
much
one specific movie?
Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. I'm given a choice of anywhere between 1 to 3 films per day, and it's never the big blockbuster of the weekend. It's never the big blockbuster of the weekend. Several weekends after it's the big blockbuster. It's always just these small art house films. So for yesterday, it was Cold War, The Prodigy, Stan and Ollie, and The Favorite. I've already seen The Favorite. Great movie. And then I decided I want to go see Cold War because I got a couple Oscar nominations, so I want to see how good it is. I really like it. And there was a guy in the theater who I thought he walked into the wrong movie because he's in there. He's wearing a trucker hat. His jeans are sagging way past his ass. He's in the sleeves are cut off of his shirt. And I'm like, okay, this guy clearly walked into the wrong movie. No, he was in love with it. He was just enraptured by everything happening on the film. It's like, wow, that guy is not the stereotype I thought he was.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
Never judge a book by its cover.
Exactly.
It's like he just saw war and he thought, "Oh, that sounds good," but then he learned something.
We contain multitudes, yo.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So Valentine's Day is upon us, nearly here. It's I think Wednesday. I don't pay attention to it. Nintendo fans have voted Waluigi as their Valentine. Men will spend on average just under $100 on their sweethearts this year. And single people will probably be taking some extreme steps to ensure they don't spend the night alone with a Pornhub video. One such person taking drastic measures, and I want to start the show off with this story because it's amusing, is Nancy Oakley out of Florida, the southern state that's not embroiled in a blackface controversy yet. Oakley served as the Madeira Beach City Commissioner until just recently when she had to resign in disgrace. The Florida Commission on Ethics, which apparently thought it was ethical for felons in the state not to be able to vote for a long fucking time, said Oakley was guilty of sexually harassing a former city manager. How did she do this, you might ask? Well, in addition to grabbing his junk, which you should never do, she thought it was okay to lick the man's face. According to a story from WNCN, Oakley would lick the man's face from the Adam's apple up and then again across from left to right.
Making sign of the cross, duh.
Or she's a fucking golden retriever whose owner just got back from Iraq. I don't know. And apparently she had no care about who saw what went down because she did it, according to the story, in front of the man's wife.
Whoa!
Nice. Again, power move.
Yeah, that's what the guy described it as. He says, this isn't sexual. This is a weird power move. And I kind of have to agree.
This reminded me of a story. I think it's LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, former president, who in the middle of meetings would get up and go piss in a potted plant in the room and just stand really close to people. Like they're sitting in a chair. And he was really tall, by the way.
Yeah.
And he would just stand 2 inches from them as they're talking and just piss in this potted plant and just would cuss at them and didn't care. And it was all like power moves. It was all just intimidation. Right. So I figured they were both kind of equally nuts. She's just Florida nuts and he was president nuts. So I can understand where it's coming from. Even it is clearly batshit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, LBJ was very proud of his J because I've read multiple stories that he would just take it out.
So this isn't the first story we've had about Floridians. Is that the term?
Yes, that's the term.
About Floridians on the show. And although I don't want to annoy any of our listeners who may be from Florida, you might have to explain to me why a lot of these stories come out of Florida.
Because Florida's a backwards ass swamp. Just straight up. I mean,
It's a multitude of factors. It's kind of a syndrome, if you will. There's a combination of being near Disneyland, which I don't think helps. And there's some weird kind of occult mojo happening there. The swamp is a naturally decrepit place, and I think it kind of breeds outward towards human beings. Drugs, meth, probably unlicensed tattoo shops spreading blood poisoning. I think that's definitely part of it.
The economy being retirees.
Yeah, there's a kind of an undercurrent of incest, I think, goes throughout. It's generational throughout Florida. Getting hit that many times with hurricanes, I think they have a lot of trauma issues that is sort of bred into their souls now. And some of it's just, I think, God has forsaken them
Basically.
in a real, like, viable sense. I think it's just, if you want to find, like, what is hell, Woody Allen would say it's the absence of people, or other people rather. I think it's the absence of light. I think if hell exists, you can see kind of God's model for it in Florida. I've been to Florida. I've spent time in Pensacola. I went to Panama City for a spring break. Yeah, and everything's sort of, it's that film of like butterfly, tanning oil, and like jizz. It's just, everything has that kind of, it's the smell, it's the texture, it's very unpleasant.
Like, one of the most insane stories I ever heard out of Florida was that guy tripping on drugs who was eating people's faces.
Bath salts.
Yeah.
Florida is just a weird combination of southern state, heavy immigrant population, lot of old people, and then they're all just stubborn because, as you say, they get hit by hurricanes every year and none of them leave. And then there's just so many of them. I think it's the fourth most populated state in the nation. So it's just, I don't know, just this weird mashing up of cultures. And there's a reason you get stuff like the Bang Bus and also Magic Mike all take place in Florida. Like, that doesn't take place anywhere else but Florida. So with this woman, with Miss Oakley, in addition to resigning from her position, she had to pay a $5,000 fine, and she maintains that she is innocent, but has 30 days to appeal the ethics board ruling. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Innocent of what? Like performing the licking?
Yes, she says that did not happen the way that it has been described.
So is the only witness the lickee and his wife?
I think so. The article I read didn't mention anyone else who came forward to talk about it, say they are a witness to it. But they did have a lot of people come to her defense, and also people say, yeah, this is not really giving Florida a good name right now.
I love the way that I'm asking for the details as if it's like all the pieces are in place and I'm the guy who's going to solve the mystery.
Sure. I don't like to disparage people's looks. I don't think that's very fair. But when I saw this woman in the news article, she looked like the third panel of the cover of an Animorphs book where someone was morphing into a frog.
Maybe she's stuck.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's why she's slitting people's faces.
That's a wonderful 90s reference right there.
Yeah, thank you.
Maybe it's some of her latent animalistic tendencies coming through.
Exactly. It all makes sense.
I'm telling you, golden retriever whose owner just got back from Iraq.
Yeah.
All right, so yeah, just want to start with that story. It's a pleasant way to lead into Valentine's Day. But let's get into some games, and I'll go ahead and start us off. This past week, I've been playing the Lyre Princess and the Blind Prince. This is the new NIS, Nippon Ichiban Software joint. It is a puzzle platformer with a really, agreeable, really pleasant art style that goes well with the story that's more of a fairy tale. The story, the art direction, the music, they just all come together really well. That this is just a game that I kind of want to just watch. Like if this were a walking simulator, and even if it was just 2D left to right walking simulator, I think I really would have enjoyed it with the story that it was telling, with all the different creature designs that they had in it. Occams, I think you would love the design of the goats in this game because they don't look like goats; they look like yetis.
Nice.
And so it's just some really creative character designs. And if you saw my review, there was one of the pictures had the wolf, who I love how they did the wolf, and then also the witch, who I said in the comments looks like someone who could be a Heartless in the Kingdom Hearts series. And so all of those aspects of this game are so great. And then the actual puzzle platforming is just bland. And it's really sad because you had NIS did the Firefly Diary. I didn't play that, but I don't know anyone who likes it. And part of the problem was the control scheme that they said was bad. But then 2 years ago, they did A Rose in the Twilight, which I really enjoyed. It had some of the similar, had a great art direction, had great music. The story was it was told through flashbacks, but it was, kind of a sad, really good story. But the gameplay was actually still really good. The puzzle platforming, well, I guess more puzzle solving than platforming because, that girl could not jump. But it definitely seems like the best and brightest that was in that game. Not all of it made it over to this new one. I don't know if it's the same team. I know that the Lyre Princess and the Blind Prince is the result of NIS does inter-office contests where people pitch game ideas and the winning one gets made. It's how we got the Firefly Diary. It's how we got Yamawari, which is a horror game I absolutely love. And it's how we got this one. And so it was just it's just disappointing to me that the puzzle platforming part of it, the actual gameplay of it, wasn't nearly as good as it could be. There's also some technical issues in it. I didn't really care about those because those can all be fixed in an update. But it was just all the highs that I got from watching the trailers to this game did not really they weren't met when I actually got to play it. Some people felt differently. The guy who wrote the review for the Reno Gazette-Journal, I mean, he fucking had a coming to God moment with this game. If you get a chance, read his review because it is just like he is laying it all out there.
Well, I know I was kind of looking forward to it. It wasn't on my list of must-play games or anything, but I wrote a bit about it on the site when the first trailers came out, and I really kind of fell in love with how it looks. And I'll probably still play it down the line. I don't know the price, but I've heard it's a bit expensive for what it is.
It's $40.
Holy okay. I thought it was like 20 or something.
No. I think 20 would be a lot more agreeable.
But I'll still check it out because I really like the way it looks. But it is I didn't expect it to be a gameplay heavy. I thought it would be more of a very, 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 very interactive visual novel. But I'm still going to check it out because how it looks. But it is a bit disappointing to hear that it doesn't match the aesthetic of the game because it looks really beautiful and really sweet as well.
Yeah, it is. And my favorite thing is most of the puzzles kind of fall into a hit this switch, you can proceed. It's just a different variation of the switch puzzles. About halfway through the game, you get to this set of stages that have these little story blocks, and generally they will present you with a riddle that you then have to use these little number counters to solve. So it'll say, I don't know, it'll have a little riddle, but the word 8 will be halfway crossed out. And so you have to go and type in or get the number counter to the number 8 and you can proceed. Also, people who did a review of the game, videochums.com, I think it is, they flat out gave out the answers to half the puzzles in the game in their review for no reason. Just thought I'd put it out there. But you get to these stages and there's these little number counting puzzles and it's okay. So this kind of makes sense. But then halfway through, there's a stage that you can just walk to the end in 2 seconds. Beat it just like that. But there is a sign that says if you go into this little portal, you'll face the trek forward is difficult. And you have to go that way if you want to get all of the collectibles that are in the game, which the collectibles are great because they unlock either art for the game, which is my favorite part of it, or they unlock a little secondary story that you read through, which is quite good. So I decided to go through this, and it is just this completely out of place, overly difficult puzzle that is just, here's a huge number grid, find out where on the grid the 4 numbers go. And I eventually solved it. It took me about 25 minutes to figure out exactly what it was asking of me, but I got to the point where I was almost just going to do... I was going to go through the process of elimination and just start putting every number in, which would have taken me about 3.5 hours to do. But it's this weird puzzle that it's a great puzzle, but it feels completely out of place with this game. Like it's a remnant of something else because it does not feel like it belongs in this.
That reminds me of if you've ever got to, spoiler alert for, I think it's the newest version of 999. Mm-hmm. You get to the end and it's basically just a Sudoku. Well, it might be the first version that came out for the DS and not the remaster, but the end of the end puzzle is just a Sudoku puzzle. Yeah, and it's like, okay,
that's weird.
This doesn't fit at all.
So in addition to Lyre Princess, I picked up Star Fox 64 3D because they have the Nintendo Select re-release in America finally. And I was playing it yesterday, and I was doing a really shitty job. I couldn't figure out why I was so bad at this. I don't know when this happened, but I think I now prefer inverted controls.
Oh, God.
Because when I was playing with the regular controls, I was missing everything. I was just absolutely bad at this game. Switch over to inverted, and suddenly I'm, just a champ. I'm just wondering, when the hell did that happen?
Do you use the metric system now?
No, although fitness boxing, which I've been playing for the last month, and I have a review coming up on Monday, it's for the North American release, they just basically brought over the British English. And so your weight is done in kilograms, which means every time I have to weigh myself, I have to break out my phone to figure out what pounds to kilograms is. It's really goddamn annoying. It's like they're trying to force me into the metric system, which Jimmy Carter never could. It's just...
But Chris, we don't use the metric system, do we?
Well, I weigh myself in stone and pounds.
Yeah,
and I think most grocers now, when they're weighing fruit, will sell it you by the pound. I don't remember the last time I used kilograms for a long time, to be honest.
Yeah, I only use kilograms since I moved to Germany because I can't get scales that go in stones and pounds. Or maybe I can configure them, but it's just easier to do everything in kilograms now. But yeah, so I wonder why that issue comes up in fitness boxing then. Probably.
Maybe it's left over from the Japanese version, and they just didn't bother localizing it to wherever territories it was going to.
Yeah, that's a pretty big issue because I wouldn't know my weight in stones and pounds off the top of my head. I only know it in kilograms. So that's a pretty annoying. All right,
Chris, you've been playing Persona 5, I see.
Yeah, I'm really stuck in a rut with games at the moment, and I just don't have the desire to play much. I'm playing Metro Exodus for review, but I can't talk about that, obviously. But I've been playing New Game Plus on Persona 5, and I'm really rushing through it, fast-forwarding through all the cutscenes and all the dialogue, which it still takes 50 hours, even if you play it that way. And the only times I'm pausing, and I'm auto-battling as well, because my characters are God level, because you don't keep everything, but you keep a lot of the stuff from your previous game, but not everything. And the only thing I'm really spending any time concentrating on is the side stories that I didn't finish, where you do tasks for your various friends, and you follow that story, and it essentially gives you bonuses to use in the game, and then you can choose to date somebody at the end. But as for the game itself, I'm pressing the automatic fight button on the fights and the fast forward button on all the cutscenes. So as I said on the site the other day, it feels more like I'm just pushing through an OCD sort of. I'm ticking all the boxes rather than engaging with the game. Does that make sense?
That sounds like something I do when I have to review a really long RPG.
Right. It's more, what haven't I done? I bet, what achievements haven't I got, or which characters didn't I max out? And I'm doing all that stuff, but it's almost like I'm not sure why I'm doing it. It's very mechanical what I'm doing. But I started dating an in-game character, which is basically what my Valentine's Day is going to be. Well, that and I've got to have some blood tests done. So that's my February the 14th. But I picked a character to date, Hifumi, who's the shogi player. None of the adults, because that's just weird. and not Futaba because she's a fucking child.
My character. I this is so bad. I've forgotten what his canon name is, but mine ended up with all of the older characters and Hifumi, and I did not intend that to happen. I just went with it. I went with the flow, and he ended up being the sort of gent who dates the older lady. So
there's some, and funny enough, we're talking about Valentine's Day. It's almost like I don't want to give it away, but for those who are listening who don't know, if you date multiple characters, when in the in-game calendar Valentine's Day comes around, like that comes back to bite you. It's quite funny.
Well, I know one of the things I keep hearing from people, even who are fans of it, they keep saying the end game dungeons are just fucking arduous. They're just so long.
Pretty much the second to last dungeon has really far apart save rooms and really arduous fights in between those save rooms. And it's not impossible to lose, it's genuinely not impossible to lose nearly 50 minutes to an hour of progress.
Oof.
I do think Persona 5 is a good game. I'm interested to see if they do anything else with it going forward, like a re-release version, although I believe they said they weren't going to do that. But I definitely prefer the look, the music, the style, the fonts, the characters to the way the game tells its story or its plot or how its dungeons are laid out. It has a good reputation. It has that good reputation for a reason, and it's an incredibly stylish and cool game. It just has some problems under the hood, which it's very good at kind of painting over because of how fucking cool it is. Is that a fair comment, Charlotte? Do you agree?
I think so. I think I have a lot of criticisms of Persona 5. I love the game, but it's by no means my favorite Persona game by quite a margin. But I think the problem is once you like those types of games and you played multiple of them, it's impossible not to compare them. And it's just, I had problems with the story, and the end dungeons for me weren't hard per se, because I had this issue with Persona 3 where I just completely messed up my grinding and I couldn't finish the game on one of my playthroughs, and it was nowhere near that bad for me, but it was just dragged on way too much. It was too baggy, and yeah, I'm getting the sense that that's the thing with a lot of games nowadays, that there's just too much extra content in that doesn't add anything.
It's kind of like my fan. I do really like Persona 5. It's a game I remember playing a lot, and if they re-released it with extra features, I'd probably play through it again. But for the things I say about it that I don't like, when I last saved my game, it had 155 hours on it, so it's got to be doing something.
Christ.
Yeah.
All right, Occams, you're still on Resident Evil 2?
I am. I play slowly and with great care. So I beat Claire's campaign, and that was fun. And it was really it's just a little traipse down memory lane. So now I'm on to Leon, and Leon's campaign is harder. I don't know why. I did the bit where you play as Ada. Oh God, I hate when you've got this character and they've got all their stuff, and you got the guns upgraded a bit, and you have the health items, and you're kind of used to the flow of it and all, and plus you have that sweet noir outfit that I wish I could pull off. And then I jump over to Ada, and she has you start off, they have a gun with 5 bullets and a supermarket scanner that can see wires in a wall, and you're like, oh fuck.
So zombies are following you.
Yeah, that was great. But yeah, so I'm about halfway through Leon's campaign, and it's wonderful. I'm playing very slowly just to kind of take it all in, and I have some time before the next couple games I want to play come out. And yeah, it's a treat, a gem, a joy. I can't wait for those what if stories for the other people, and all that stuff. So that'll be fun. But yeah, it's. I don't have a lot to say. I think I said most of it last week with it, but it's very nice. It's everything I wanted to be and a little bit more.
Are you playing on second run?
Yeah.
I'm really glad you're still enjoying it, because I'd heard that after 2 weeks we'd all realised we didn't like it.
Well, I think I'm the exception rather than the rule when it comes to that, because yeah.
Well, I know a guy on YouTube who'd probably disagree with you.
I'm waiting for him to get a new game to go after, because he's just kind of boring right now.
What's the next one going to be? What do you think it's going to be? What's
Anthem?
the next
Probably Anthem. It's probably a praise anthem.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Straight up. Anthem's the best thing ever.
He praised Fallout 76. So, Charlotte, you have been playing This War of Mine. This is a game that I've always... I have 2 versions of it, but I have yet to play it.
Yeah, I got it on PS Plus at some point, and it's one of these pile of games that I've got to. I've decided to complete for a series of podcasts that I'm doing starting in end of March, beginning of April, and I've sort of been dreading playing it in a way. When it came up that I was doing this podcast, I was like, oh, because this is gonna be interesting, but very sort of weigh very heavily on me. I'm going to have to play it in short bursts because otherwise I'm just going to feel terrible. So, and so I've just been playing it like an hour and a half over a couple of evenings just to get a feel for it to start with. And it's actually, it's really, how do I put it? It's a very clearly a game with a message. I mean, I believe it was made in collaboration with an actual charity, I think War Child, and it's clearly everything is about the horrors of war, but it's also really well designed. It's you've got to plan all your different people who are living in this abandoned house and make sure that you've got enough people going to scavenge, but every time you send somebody to go and scavenge, there's a risk that they might die.
Yeah.
And also you get raided practically every other evening, so you've got to plan to have somebody on guard and make sure everything's boarded up. And it's really, really difficult actually to do well at the beginning. It's really easy to mess up, but I think that's the entire point. So I'm really interested in this game, and I'm just gonna, for the next, until the end of March to finish this game, I think I'm just going to do bits and pieces here and there so that it doesn't leave me feeling extremely, despondent. So, yeah.
That definitely seems like the type of game that'll do that to you.
Yeah, I'm going to space it in between. I'm still got Dino Crisis on the go and several other games. So I'm just going to have a rotation of what I'm playing, I think.
Do you think that like the somberness of the game in any way that can turn an audience off it, or do you think like how well do you think they're balanced out, keeping you engaged and not making you almost totally sociopathic because they've just turned you off with quite how dark and miserable the game itself is?
I get the impression that it's I think the vast majority of players will become very attached to the characters and not want them to die, and a bit like Valkyria Chronicles. Some people play Valkyria Chronicles and they're absolutely mortified when they lose a character. I'm not like that, to be honest. I just let everybody die. But not in this War of Mine. In this War of Mine, I do feel this stronger pull to make sure everybody's okay. And to be honest, I think the people who are not going to be affected by the content and are actually going to react badly to it probably wouldn't pick up the game in the first place.
Right.
So I think it's geared towards people who are interested in the subject matter to start with and want to experience a thoughtful game and a thoughtful way to teach people about how living in a war zone and potentially the background of people who then go on to be refugees, like all the stuff that they have to do. And for example, they often have to do illegal and not very nice things just to survive. I think it's a really fascinating game, but it's not for everybody. And I think the vast majority of people who will be rubbed up the wrong way by the subject matter will probably just not pick it up in the first place, to be honest.
Yeah, those people are probably playing, instead of that, Apex Legends. Like Dan. Dan, you've been playing Apex Legends.
Yep, they're dropping in they're 3-person squads. Sometimes one of those players getting mad, and then they're dropping N-words, and then, yeah.
Can we all just agree, Apex Legends may be the worst title of the year? Like, I don't think anything is going to eclipse that for terrible game name for 2019.
Yeah, even like Apex would have been fine. I guess because the game features quote-unquote legends, which are just basically heroes, and they needed a reason to throw that in there. But why not just call it Titanfall Legends then?
Yeah.
And you think that would make way more sense?
It makes me think of, and I've seen this in tweets as well, so it's not just me, but it makes me think of Aphex Twin.
Yeah, me too.
Well, I've written Aphex Legends a couple of times now.
Okay, but yeah, there is a lore here to it. for the reason why they call it Apex Legends. It's set 30 years after the events of Titanfall 2.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially the event itself, it's a blood sport called the Apex, hence the name of the game. And, it's 60 players across 3-person squads, so 20 squads in total, with up to 8 different legends to choose from. But 2 of them are kind of locked behind sort of a paywall. They can either get with in-game currency or a premium currency. And that's probably one of my biggest issues, because 2 of those characters specifically are in the advertising. And they're pretty big game changers. Like, Mirage has a pretty unique ability to create these like holographic clones of himself. I feel like both those characters are distinct enough that they will throw new players for a loop, which I think in that sense, then there's an argument for maybe a pay to win system, but I wouldn't say it's too bad considering the game is free to play.
Right.
But considering Respawn or the former Infinity Ward guys, this is maybe the best shooter, I would say, in the Battle Royale genre. Like, the controls absolutely feel tight and precise. The UI in general is fantastic. The tagging system, for example, just being able to mark down enemies where they are in the map, mark down items, mark down where you want to go, makes playing with random players, even without microphones, really viable and surprisingly easy to do. Like, I have dropped in with randoms a number of times now, and I've won matches with them. And not once did we use the microphones, because the tagging system works really well. It's really robust. You can mark down which weapons you might want to get, which ammo you're after, where enemies are, like I said, and that stuff is really intuitive.
That's the one thing I've read positive from every single outlet, is everyone loves the ping system in this game.
I think if I have any complaints at the moment, I'm a bit sour by the lack of a single player, or well, more specifically, like a solo play mode. Because right now, the only way to play this is in basically a SWAT system, and I've always enjoyed my Battle Royale kind of solo. I feel it's more tense, but I could see why they haven't gone with the solo play route as of yet. I don't think there's enough legends to even support it. There's certain legends that are specifically geared towards playing in a squad, and I just don't think it would work. So maybe once they double the roster, maybe then they can add it. And a lot of people are also upset, like the big Titanfall audience are kind of upset by the lack of Titans and mechs, as well as the crazy wall running and double jumping and all that stuff. But Respawn did come out and say like the reason why is because they first initially intended to have all that stuff, but it just wouldn't work for what they wanted. But that said, I can't help but sit there and think, but what if? What if there was a Battle Royale game with giant mechs and wall running and double jumping? And I just keep thinking about that. So...
Well, first of all, if the Titanfall audience was actually big, we'd probably be playing Titanfall 3 with its Battle Royale mode instead of Apex Legends.
Shit, shots fired.
Let's not forget the reason we're here is because Titanfall 2, you can buy for $6 now. I
would argue, though, a lot of that came down to EA being EA, and for whatever reason, thinking it was a great idea to release that between Call of Duty and Battlefield.
Right. No, there's a lot of problems in there, but Titanfall 2 was rated higher than both of those games. Like, it got better review scores than either of them. And so this was just, people made their choice, and obviously they chose wrong, because one thing I've read a lot of or seen a lot of on Twitter is people saying, "Oh my God, I just discovered Titanfall 2 because of Apex Legends," and how much they enjoy it.
Yeah, it's great. Like, I've played that campaign through a couple of times now. It's really genuinely one of the best single player shooter campaigns that's ever been released. And I played it after watching somebody else play it all the way through.
Dan, how is the map in Apex Legends? Because I've also, there's the little dog shrine I saw the little Twitter thread on, but one of the things I've read is that people seem to think it's probably the most diverse in terms of the variety that you see in land structures on the map.
Yeah, like a lot of the locations are pretty recognizable from a big distance. So once you do get to know the meta of the map, without even looking or even bringing up the map itself, you'll have a pretty rough idea of where you're going constantly. And I feel like they got the size of this thing just right.
Yeah.
To a point where you're not going to be like in PlayerUnknown Battleground, where you're running around for up to 30 minutes not seeing anybody and then just dying in seconds. In this, the matches feel quick enough that it's not too big of an issue if you get killed within seconds. And you'll constantly run into other squads at least every couple of minutes. Like, I feel they really prototyped this thing big time. And mixing that with the surprise launch, not even going into early access or anything like that, I think it was just a big surprise that caught everybody off guard.
It definitely did. For it to launch before Battlefield got its Battle Royale mode, I would not have seen that coming.
I didn't even think about that. Oh man, the irony there. It's weird that like Respawn's new game might now be derailing BioWare's and even DICE's new game. Jeez. Yeah. Anyways,
that's Respawn getting revenge on what happened to Titanfall 2. It's like, you know what? You screwed over our last game. We're gonna screw over your next one. Fuck you guys.
They had an interview with IGN, and one of the guys talking to IGN specifically went and said EA had no creative like say on this game, and it's really telling when they were throwing EA under the bus, being like, yeah, no, we had all the creative say on this thing.
This is Podtoid.
All right, so that's it for the games that we've played this week, but there is still more to talk about. We have some headlines. It is time for the news. This has actually been kind of a quiet week. This coming week might actually be the big one. There's a rumored Nintendo Direct that could happen either on Valentine's Day or just before. Who really knows? We had a false alarm about that last month. If it doesn't happen, the biggest story is probably going to be that this week there are potential layoffs at Activision Blizzard. Bloomberg reported this on Friday. According to an unnamed source with the company, Activision Blizzard is set to fire hundreds of employees this week amid slowing sales and a changing business environment. While Call of Duty Black Ops 4 was successful, as was the Spyro remakes, other games that it produces haven't fared so well. Titles like Overwatch and Hearthstone were either flat with last year or saw their user base drop. Destiny 2 Forsaken, despite being well-reviewed, flopped at retail. You may remember, or you should remember, Bungie announced last month it was taking control of future publishing of Destiny games. Activision Blizzard stock has fallen by nearly half in just a few months. They're giving refunds to people who bought the last Guitar Hero game between certain dates. The country of Sweden could be getting a nearly $390 million fine out of them. And they currently only have 4 new games on the docket for 2019. This is Activision and Blizzard. Diablo Immortal, Crash Team Racing, whatever Call of Duty they're making next year, and they're publishing Scarier for From Software. We've talked about Activision a lot on the show just because we're trying to figure out what they're doing. But what strikes me about this news and how upsetting it is, and it's not just upsetting because hundreds of people are about to be out of work and hopefully other game developers are going to be there to scoop a bunch of them up, but Activision has been named one of the best places to work at for like 5 years in a row. People love working there, and it just kind of seems like Activision has failed them.
I'll tell you who is going to love working there. That chief financial officer just got given $15 million for taking the job.
Pretty much.
And didn't Blizzard also just buy up CD Projekt Red's one of their top guys, the guy who basically designed Cyberpunk, or one of the Cyberpunk designers? Like, he just went to Blizzard as well. So that wasn't, I'm sure that wasn't cheap. But
that's news to me. I didn't hear about that.
I remember that, yeah.
But yeah, this CFO, that wasn't even salary. That was just like, if you take the job, we'll give you a down payment of $15 million. So, and I'm sure that was at the beginning of January.
I was gonna say, he has his work cut out for them because, Activision to me never really seemed like it was a developer or publisher that was planning for the future. It was just living in the moment, trying to ride it out as long as they can. And they've kind of been doing that forever because everything they do is just, we have a franchise, we're going to run it into the ground. Skylanders, run it into the ground. Guitar Hero, run it into the ground. Tony Hawk, run it into the ground. Call of Duty, somehow have not run it into the ground.
Yeah, I hate to sound pessimistic, but that really does feel that way. Like, there was not a lot of forethought put into dealing with these properties and make them sustainable and giving them legs. It was like, get as much as you can before they sort of peter out. And I get the idea with the CFO. You pay somebody a comparable salary to their job description, what they're worth, and all. And bonuses are a thing in corporate America.
Right.
I get all that. But yeah, the optics of like, we're going to lay off 400 people, but this fella gets 15 million. Like, it just, And, he doesn't give a fuck. I mean, let's just we don't have to pretend like I'm concerned. Nah, $50 million. I don't give a shit. But it's just unfortunate that like, who was it? The Iwata, is that the guy's name? The fellow,
yes,
yeah, the fellow who passed, who like didn't he like cut his salary in half or like take $1 or something to help? Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not saying this guy has to follow that model, but I've seen that like on the comments on Destructoid, people were pointing out that Iwata did that, and I think things like that really go a long way into showing the humanity in the side of business when there isn't a lot of humanity to be had most of the time.
I'm so depressed now.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be pessimistic with it. I just
no. I agree with you. I think you're right. I think that's why it's so depressing, because you've nailed it. You're spot on. Yeah.
And I think the more telling thing is that they have 4 games, and it's like, and one of them is that Diablo mobile game, which honestly will probably make them a shit ton of cash. But I'm kind of depressed to hear that, because Blizzard is such a rich history of game making, and it's like, ugh, boy, that ain't a lot.
This is CJ. This is where you come in with that, and now on the lighter side of the news story.
No, we don't have that. Unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of light news this week. We're just going to keep it sad. ScrewAttack is no more. The popular video gaming outlet that gave us personalities like Handsome Tom, Stuttering Craig, has rebranded itself as Death Battle Channel, named after one of its most popular shows. ScrewAttack was acquired by Fullscreen in 2014 and then became a part of Rooster Teeth the very next year. I can't remember the last time I actually went and saw a ScrewAttack video, and they were game trailers if I'm not mistaken. But that was my first experience with online gaming culture. Before I went to Destructoid, before I was a writer on Nintendo Star, before I visited Nintendo Dojo, I was watching their top 10 lists. And I just really liked it. I liked that was a fun era of gaming online culture to get into it, because everyone was having fun at that time before we all got super serious.
I never watched any other stuff.
Oh, yeah, honestly, I didn't even know what ScrewAttack was, and it's nothing against them. It's just I think my gaming culture experience was like my friends and I would watch trailers online, but we never had channels or anything we went to specifically for people. It was always just the content.
Right. I watched them. I could not name a Destructoid video content that I watched before I joined and even after I joined. Like I never watched. Hey Ash, I started watching Hey Ash, What You Playing? I think like last year I finally started watching it. So like this was my only channel that I went to specifically for video content to see what they had.
My only knowledge of the ScrewAttack stuff is the Death Battle stuff, which probably says a lot, because that's obviously what they've rebranded themselves as, and that's probably the only series of their videos that I've seen. And for those of you who haven't, it's that fanboy thing of like who would win, Batman or Goku, and they literally break down the abilities and they look at past histories of what the characters have done, and they literally try to formularize who would win, and then they present that fight in like an animated form.
Oh, go ahead.
And it's genuinely quite cool. Like some of the face-offs are really good, and I think what's quite clever about it is when you look at the evidence that they present, even though it's ridiculous, like who'd win out of the Joker or Gem and the Holograms, like you're genuinely at the end, you look at the evidence and you're like, yeah, that is how it would play out. But the fact that they even animate the fight that usually shows, and look, if this happened, this is when he'd use this defense or whatever. You at the end, you buy it. You're just like, yeah, he would win the fight. Actually, no, because Gem and the Holograms would win that fight.
Well, I think we would win that fight, because that clearly would end in a big orgy.
I remember they pitted Goku versus Superman, and they made Superman win, and I was like, well, fuck this show. That's it. That's my experience with Death Battle.
Superman wouldn't win that fight anyway.
Goku is basically Superman, except he's come back from the dead like 25 more times.
Well, he's also much more powerful than Superman. I mean, come on. Like, Superman, first off, Superman's power is very much dependent on, like, is he mad or is he blah, blah, blah. But it's Goku, like, just can, like, kick a planet in half. Goku would win. It's fine.
Oh, yeah, Goku would win. That's what I mean.
What if it was the angry Superman from Superman 4?
Still
drunken Superman.
Yeah, really. Like angry Superman is just like brr, and he cuts a building in half with his little laser eyes. Goku kicked the fucking planet in half. So it was it.
It was Superman 3. I can't believe I got that wrong.
Superman 3 was without the insanely scary robot woman.
Oh,
nope,
yes.
Don't remember.
At the end.
It is a thing I had nightmares about for years. Look up Superman 3 Robot Lady. As a child, it's terrified me.
I think one of the villains, like secretaries or right-hand woman or whatever, she gets cyberized basically, but it's like really frightening for kids.
She had these like opaque, milky, kind of roomy eyes that the contacts they put in when she was all cyberized. It was unpleasant. See, this like death battle thing, we did that in college. Only we would sit around a table outside of our dorm, chain smoke, secretly drink vodka, and just like yell at each other for hours over who would win. A big one for us was the Predators versus the Midwest. Just who wins, the Predators or Midwest? And it's like, well, the Midwest, they have a couple guns. And they have some pitchforks and say, the Predators can turn invisible, and it was fun. It was it was a good time. It was nice being like 20 and doing that. So
this robot woman is frightening. I'm looking at her picture right now.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ.
Find like the clip of the movie and watch the whole thing. Her because the transformation is clearly very painful because she's screaming while it happens, and then she comes out of it and she's got this kind of like real like zombie rigorized body with a really really bad wig on. It just and imagine being like, I don't know, I forget when that movie came out, but being like 6 or 7 and seeing that.
You are listening to Podtoid.
Let's go ahead and get into the Podtoid question of the week.
How many licks does it take to get to the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop?
I'm sorry, that is not the Podtoid question of the week. This week's question actually comes from me. Earlier last week when they revealed that Cable and Devora are coming to Mortal Kombat 11.
Yeah, Cabal. Actually.
Cabal. Oh, that's right. Not Marvel's Cable. Cabal. But they finally put a kibosh on the meme that Shaggy from Scooby-Doo should be in Mortal Kombat 11.
These kids suck.
Can I just stop? Sorry, can I just stop the flow? Just to say that was such a horrible idea. Not because it was one of these things where it was like, oh, that thing that we find funny today, in 6 months' time, can you make that a DLC character?
Yeah.
Right. And Tyler Lansdowne, who's like a community guy, he straight up was like, no, because it's a dead meme. And it's like the idea that people would find, this thing that we think's funny for this 10 minutes, in these 10 minutes, we'll pay money for that when summer rolls around.
So what you're actually saying is they should put Pepe in Mortal Kombat.
Oh.
They should put whatever is going to be funny the week that they're releasing the DLC.
I think Ed Boon played a part in it because I remember he was tweeting out someone's artwork of Shaggy with like kind of a Mortal Kombat look to them. So, but like I will say his fatality would obviously be putting a piece of bread below a character and above a character and eating them like a sandwich.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Someone in the comments said that his fatality would be ripping the face off of his opponent and saying, oh my God, it's the governor who wanted to buy the amusement park.
It's Old Man Withers who ran the lighthouse.
More and more, I do want this.
Now I'm kind of leaning back towards it, wanting Shaggy in it. But this brings us to the question of the week. If Shaggy's not going to be in Mortal Kombat 11, is there another cartoon character you'd love to rip the spine out of in a future Mortal Kombat game?
Hear me out.
Okay, go ahead.
Bam Bam from the Flintstones.
Good
it's
choice.
An excuse to bring Babalities back, and he made a great fighter. That's the pitch.
He would.
Well, if you go to NIS and make that pitch, they might turn it into a game.
Oh shit!
See, I think that could work pretty well because you could. Bam Bam is about the right size to where you could wear him as a boot if you stepped on his back hard enough. So you could just have like you're trying to like kick this like dead ass baby off your foot and then you could throw him and then hit like Fred or Wilma right in the face with it, and then that would be the fatality. See, that could work. I'm into it.
No.
And even his fatality would be incredible. It's that giant ass bat just squashing people. Oh man.
Yeah.
For my entry, I would go with Jabberjaw, the classic drum playing shark. Just because I love those weird animal creatures that are in fighting games, Tekken with their bears. But it would also just be fun to be a shark and just eat people, just bite them in half as a shark would. Like the Aquaman, not necessarily fatality, but his ultimate special move from the first Injustice, where a shark comes and bites them. Just go the Mortal Kombat distance with that, and just have Jabberjaw bite someone in half and just, I don't know, suck their entrails out like it's a spaghetti string.
All right. So is the question kind of morphing into who we'd like to see in the game versus whose spine we'd like to rip out?
Either or.
Because I'm down for both. I just want to say, because when you said Jabberjaw, I thought, oh man, it'd be fun to just do a fucking like a Marine style towel party on him. It's one of my least favorite cartoon characters of all time. Like he made me nervous as a child. Just the anxiety emanating from him, and he seemed off. I didn't like him. So the tiny fins, tiny little drumsticks, giant body. I hated it.
Hear me out.
Yeah.
Hear me out. Kool-Aid Man. Think of the possibilities. You crack him open, just a bunch of dust pour out, or even his fatality. Just like slamming through a wall, but the wall is the other character.
Here's mine. Okay, so the fatality is he grabs, let's say Sonya Blade, and just pull her out of the air. Shoves her into his like body, which is the liquid thing.
No.
Then the close-up is just him staring without blinking at this camera, and it's a close-up of her drowning for like a minute and a half. Like it's twitching in the water where this kind of like reflex is still kicking a little bit, and just standing there and just Kool-Aid Man wins.
Or she drinks her way out of there and then just immediately dies of diabetes because it's Kool-Aid.
That's fair. I guess for me, it's kind of a twofer. So like the one I'd want to actually play as is and no one's gonna get this apparently, but it's the Snork who didn't talk. So for kids who don't remember, the Snorks were a take on Smurfs, but instead of on land they were underwater. And there was one of them that just never talked, but he was like really skilled at stuff. So he's kind of the Snake Eyes of the group, and that would be fun to play as him. As for the one I would want to murder, would probably be Heathcliff. And for I guess kids who couldn't afford Garfield toys, there was Heathcliff, and I've always hated Heathcliff. It would be fun, very much fun, just to kill him, step on him, smush him, wear him as a boot, because he's about the same size. A cat and a baby about the same size, because you have Bam Bam on one foot, Heathcliff on the other, and just go tap dancing.
Whoa.
Oh, Chris, Charlotte, you guys got any answers?
Yeah, I haven't thought of really who I'd want to see in. Maybe see in Mortal Kombat. Like, I can't explain why, but the Hair Bear. Oh no, the Hair Bear bunch weren't really even cartoons. They were like actually people in suits. No, pass. I can't think. Sorry?
There was a cartoon of the Hair Bear bunch.
Okay, then.
It's called Help. It's the Hair Bear bunch.
Oh yeah. Because just like, I don't know why. It just seems like there would be plenty of possibilities with just a bunch of like hippie friendly bears just turning murderous. But with who I want to die, like I have always will want Woody Woodpecker to die in as many violent and brutal ways as possible.
This is me clapping right now.
There was a revival when I was a kid of Woody Woodpecker, and I absolutely hated it. Like, I thought it was the dumbest shit ever. So he needs to die violently.
I got so many answers swimming around in my head. I don't even know which ones are real and which ones are phony. Like, I wouldn't mind pulling out Skeletor's spine because it'd be really easy. Because you've already got the skull, so you can kind of reach into the eye sockets and just yank upwards, and that gives you something to grip onto. But I kind of like Skeletor. So I'm probably going to say like the Ghostbusters, but not the real Ghostbusters, like the Filmation Ghostbusters from the 70s that's got nothing to do with the film, which
okay,
you're all going to have to go and probably look up now. But it's got nothing to actually do with like Peter and Ray and that. Like, they've got a gorilla in their team.
They do. They always had like a yellow background. It was so tacky.
Yeah, it's terrible.
In terms of who I'd like to play as, I don't know, fucking Carmen Sandiego. I don't know.
So she'd be great because she could do like a Brazilian necktie for all of them. She's got a razor in her pocket at all times.
I could go back to Gem and the Holograms, Pizzazz from the Misfits in Gem the Hologram. She'd be a great character to play us in Mortal Kombat. I'm sorry that all the cartoons I watched were like made while you were all doing fun things like making friends or playing football or like.
Growing up, we had a VHS tape that was, when they used to have those 5-hour-long VHS tapes that you could record stuff off TV. We had one filled with Saturday morning cartoons from the 1970s. So I'm getting your. I know the Ghostbusters cartoon because we had at least 2 episodes on this tape. But goddamn, Occams in your snorks. That one is over my head.
Yeah, this is what I did growing up, and then into adulthood.
Just out of interest, I've made these 70s references. I wasn't even alive in the 70s, but I caught all this stuff on repeat. So, I pulled the spine out of Manny Faces, who was like the least useful Masters of the Universe character, who could rotate his face, and he had 3 faces. And what's he going to do with that?
Also, I'm thinking of changing my answer to any human who was ever on an episode of Transformers. No one fucking watched Transformers for humans. Kill them all.
And I don't know why they thought that for a cartoon about giant robots, they needed to include humans to give us a bridge to the robots. No, we're in it for the robots. They all sound like preppy white people, and there's the one black guy. We're in it for the robots. We're cool.
No one's buying action figures of the children. Come on.
Also, that's the title of your autobiography, CJ.
All right, I think that's about it for our show. If you have an answer to this week's question, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. Before we get out, we have a community shout-out.
Yeah, I want to give a community shout-out to Flanks. Longtime user, great dude. He did a quick post about how he canceled, I believe it was his special order of Sekiro is an anime, Sekiro. I'll get that right eventually. Sure. But he canceled a video game, special collector's edition, $100+, in order to buy nicer things for his apartment. I believe it was blinds and maybe save up for a new TV or a couch. And that's really badass. That's a real great sign of adulthood. It's not easy to do, but it's a nice to strike a nice balance in your life between fun stuff and then actually wanting to progress into the grand realm of being a grown-up. So shout out to Flanks. It was a great choice, buddy, and I'm proud of you.
All right, that's the end of the show. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day, and let's see you next week.